Hey guys, this is Shelby with the Rogers Public Library. This week's theme for Full Steam Ahead is the Three Billy Goats Gruff. So our activity for that is thought about a waste that the Billy Goats could cross the bridge or the river like they do in the story without being attacked by a troll. So what we have here is a boat that I made. This is pretty easy to do. I just used pool noodles like this on the bottom, and I stapled it to a piece of cardboard. The cardboard, I waterproofed it with varnish. You can also try to duct tape it, or you could use something like foam board or corrugated plastic, cardboard type materials that aren't as sensitive to water, because it's gonna get wet. It's a boat. And then for the mast, this is just a skewer like you use to make a kebab, and I put a piece of paper on it for the seal. So you can see it floats pretty well here. Nothing too fancy. And as a test, we can put some rocks on it to see whether it could actually hold some weight. And it does. Ooh, okay. It does sink down a little bit. I got this to work earlier. Just a matter of balancing the rocks. Okay. So it sinks a little bit, but for the most part it floats. What makes the boat float is called buoyancy. So buoyancy is kind of a confluence of two different forces. One is gravity, which affects, everything on Earth. Everything is kind of pulled down. And the other one is called upthrust. When an object is placed in water, it wants to sink down. But in order to do that, it has to displace water. And water can't be compressed, right? So you can't just set it in water and it'll just sink down and the water stays in place. And so the water pushes back kind of. So it's called upthrust. And so in order for something to sink, it has to be more dense than water. It has to weigh more than the amount of water that it causes to move when you set it into the water. So this is it's cardboard and foam, right? So neither of these are very dense. They're very lightweight materials. You can pick up a whole box of pool noodles by yourself. And so it doesn't sink. It floats on top of the water. But rocks are very dense. You pick one of these up. One of these rocks by itself weighs more than that whole thing. So as soon as you set them on the boat, it now pushes further down because it's effectively more dense, and it's starting to displace more water than it can hold, but it doesn't quite do that until we put the third rock on it. Yeah, so that's our activity. It's pretty easy. You can do this inside in the sink or in a pond or a pool, anything like that. So for this experiment, we're also kind of playing with buoyancy and density. So it's pretty easy. You just need water, some coloring dye, food dye, that's optional, and vegetable oil or another type of oil like mineral or baby. This is actually canola oil though. So you start off by pouring the water in, and then you add just a drop or two of food coloring. This makes it a little bit easier for us to see what's going on in the container, and also looks pretty nice. So I'm using orange. That seems like a good color to use. Just mixing it up. And then I'm adding canola oil. If you're using a big container like this, you'll probably want a grown-up to help you. Pouring some in. See, it's not quite mixing. A lot of the oil is floating to the top, and that's because of two different things. The first is density. So water is less dense than oil. So the oil is going to float to the top. And the reason they don't just mix together is because oil is, it's hydrophobic. And that has to do, that just means that it doesn't mix with water. And that has to do with kind of how the molecules are. Water molecules like to stick to things that have two different ends of the molecules. But oil only has one end, or their ends are the same. So it's polar and non-polar. So we have the water, which is orange at the bottom, and then the oil is floating on top. And we're going to get an Alka-Seltzer tablet. I'm going to use about half of it, and we're going to drop it in and see what happens. So now we get nice bubbles forming, kind of like a lava lamp effect, although, there's not a light source here. So what's happening is that the Alka-Seltzer tablet is, it's reacting with the water and creating carbon dioxide, right? And so when that happens, the carbon dioxide starts to float up because it too is, it's less dense than water. It's also less dense than oil. So it starts floating up to the top. You can add another tablet in. But it takes a little bit of water with it. And so we get these nice bubbles that come up, and the carbon dioxide escapes, but the water's still in there. And so it falls back down in the form of little bubbles, or blobs. Yeah, so it's a pretty simple experiment. You can do this at, anywhere. You probably don't need an apron or anything. So yeah, but that's our experiment for this week. Hope you guys had fun, and I'll see you next Thursday at 2.